In some of my other work, I use a database program called FileMaker Pro. And FileMaker Pro does a lot of things. It does them really fast, and it does them in a very organized sort of fashion. And sometimes there are things that you want to do over and over again, and FileMaker Pro lets you set up these little scripts that will run through several steps automatically, so you don't have to do each step separately, which can be very convenient. But sometimes in one of those scripts, which is running very quickly most of the time, the script needs to pause. Usually to wait for the user to do something, but I just like that idea that there's a little, it'll say find something, and then in parentheses it'll say pause. And I like this idea that this machine that can run really fast, every once in a while, just needs to stop. I'm just thinking about uncomfortable pauses. And comfortable ones, too. But I've come to realize that wonder, which is our theme for Advent, is the thing that happens between the question and the answer. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of like FileMaker Pro. I want to get to the answer really quickly. So I don't tend to pause for very long. But that doesn't create too much space for wondering. So I just wonder if perhaps we need to create more space between the asking of the question and whatever answer we think we've come up with. What would happen if we just hung out in that space? What would happen if we thought of that space as being big and wide and deep and mysterious and so full of possibility that we didn't want to get to the answer so quickly? What would happen if we created that kind of space? So this word wonder, as you know, there's the part of it which is kind of the ponder part, and there's the part that's the awe part. And both of those parts are very important, and I think they're closely intertwined, because I think to the extent that we can rest in the wondering, we actually open ourselves to more wonder, which is a really good thing for us, I think. This time of Advent is a perfect place to try to open up this space of contemplation, of wondering, of asking the questions, but hanging out in the questions before we come to the answer. Partly because it is a time of waiting. It's a time where we're kind of getting ready for this event. We know what's going to happen, but we rehearse this process of waiting again for the birth of Jesus. And in that in-between space, as we're preparing for that birth story, there are all of these things that happen that are full of possible times to wonder and just try to think, well, I wonder. Like, I wonder what it was like, or what that experience was for Mary when the angel came to her. I wonder how that really worked. What was that? Or John the Baptist, who was the one who kind of heralded Jesus. What was his story? I really wonder about him. I wonder how locusts taste, and if the honey makes them taste any better. And I wonder what it was like when Mary met Elizabeth. You know, Elizabeth was pregnant with John the Baptist. They were supposedly pregnant at the same time, and when they met, there was this little leap in Elizabeth's womb, this kind of sense of recognition. What does that feel like? I wonder what that felt like. And what was that like for this older woman who was pregnant to be with this very young woman who was pregnant? I wonder why a baby in a manger in a stable, in a little tiny town, out of town. This poor family was out of town. I wonder what it meant to make that journey at that particular time in their lives, and to have that event, to have that birth happen when they were away from home. I wonder. There's so much in the story of this time, the stories of this time, to wonder about. And what if we just ask those questions and we let them roll around in our consciousness, in our beings, if we didn't rush to our own answer? Well, this is why it is, this is why it is, this is my understanding, this is my theology, this is the way it was. What if we just relaxed on our way to the answer? This is a time, it's a perfect time to do it, even though in our kind of secular lives it can be a really busy and intense time. Maybe all the more reason for us to think, to ponder, to hang out in the questions. I would invite us into at least a neutral curiosity, if not a positive curiosity. This is not a wondering time of arrogant critique. Well, I wonder why they did that. I wonder why they chose to paint their house that color. I wonder why these people are always late. It can be a time of positive or neutral curiosity where it's more like, And as we do that, you just imagine the word pause in parentheses. Now, this doesn't mean that we can't be entering into a time of wonder that includes other sorts of experiences. It could be a wistfulness. It could be a feeling of mystery. It could be a kind of unsettling. It could be a number of things. But again, to stay open to the possibilities, to stay open to those questions. As we were looking at this season, the song I Wonder As I Wander came up. That seemed like it would be a great song for this season, but it turned out the words weren't quite at least what I was looking for. And so I rewrote the verses that we were singing this morning. And as I looked back at this last verse, I realized it was a little on the dark side, and a little bit with a sense of really hanging out in that question. You would hope that the fourth verse would tie everything up, but I'm afraid that I didn't. Will peace find a home where there's little but gray? Will wonder endure, finding home where it may? We can have that question. We can rest and wait there, knowing that the Spirit of God is still swirling around us, even if we haven't found the answer. It seems to me that this time in the world is a particularly important time for us to be able to stop, to think, to wonder, to ponder before we rush off into action. These challenging situations that we're facing in the world are not like immediate problems. These are all manifestations of long-term problems. And if you think about the length of the time of the problem, that might give you an idea of the length of the time that the solution might take. So the idea that something might happen, that we would act, we would figure it out, we would act, we would rush off in a short period of time to solve a long-standing problem doesn't make sense to me. What, even in times of challenge or crisis, we could pause. The challenge of the terrorists in Paris and other places. The challenges of racial violence and inequality and justice. The challenges of refugees and whether we're willing to open our doors to them. These are not new problems. They deserve a solution. But what if we stopped to pause and wonder? And what if we thought of that as a kind of a mysterious process, looking for some sorts of answers that perhaps that hadn't occurred to us otherwise? What if we created the space for the new thing to happen? I hope that the people that are gathering in Paris for the climate summit don't have all the answers, all tried to figure out, especially if different countries are coming with different answers or different solutions. Because if we've all decided, well, this is my answer, it makes it that much harder to find the answer for all of us. In a little bit, we're going to sing the last two verses of O Come, Emmanuel. And I find the first two verses very familiar, and then when you get to 6 and 7, not as much so. But as I was thinking about this sermon, and when I was thinking about the challenges of the world right now, these are the words that we're going to sing. And they're challenging, and I hope that we can take them seriously. O come, desire of nations bind, all peoples in one heart and mind. Make envy, strife, and quarrels cease. Fill the whole world with heaven's peace. Pause. Wonder. Open. Imagine. Expect the unexpected. Keep breathing. Amen.